Hi, and welcome to the demo video for QOOBIT's Control Rig Fixer. To get started, make sure we launch our plugins and do a quick check that the Control Rig Fixer plugin is in fact enabled. If it's not enabled and it's the first time you're checking this checkbox, make sure you do restart your editor to make sure that everything has taken effect and is activated correctly. So from here, we look at the main menu. You should have a QOOBIT menu with rigging Control Rig Fixer, and this will launch our widget tool. If you can't find this from the menu, you can also look for it under Q Control Rig Fixer widgets, and we can right click and run Energy Utility widget to get to this point. From here, we assume that you know how to import a MetaHuman. So if you did import a MetaHuman correctly, you should have a MetaHuman underneath the content folder under MetaHumans. In this case, we've imported a sample MetaHuman for Aoi, and he's living here in this folder here. So with a default MetaHuman pre-populated, we can click the default MetaHuman body rig to load the control rig into the body control rig slot. If you did not download a MetaHuman, or if your control rig is in a different location, for example, your Manny, or if you have another copy of your control rig, you can also search for it in here or click and drag it from the content browser into the slot here. So leaving everything as is, we're just going to click Run Fix Action to apply the fixes to the control rig. So before we actually click the button, note the two important things here is that this right here is checked for create new control rig with suffix. This will ensure that we're not modifying the main copy of the control rig and that we're duplicating it into a new control rig with this suffix on the end of the name. And then we're also applying the customizations after the fix. So after that, we're going to hit Run Fix Actions. And while it's running, it's going to be duplicating and applying these fixed control rig actions on top of the control rig, as well as modifying the colors that you can see below. So now that we've applied the fixes, it'll show you that this is the location of the new rig, and pressing OK will take you to the rig in your content browser. So now that we're here, note that the fixed actions are no longer visible, and the fixed new control rig is now part of the slot. And we can also continue to customize if we need to change more fields. For the body rig, we've exposed all the colors that you can actually change for the left side and the right hand side for the primary and secondary color, as well as the proxy controls, as well as the center column color, as well as the spine colors, which are very custom. If you are familiar with the body control rig, there are a lot of Boolean channels, float channels, and other control channels. This will allow you to modify their default initial values really easily in one interface. We're not going to be covering that. This is more of an advanced topic. So if you are curious on how to use and leverage all of these features, stay tuned for an upcoming video where we'll cover how all of these tools or all of these controls are being used. So how do we see what we've actually fixed on the body control rig? So from here, we prepared a sample level sequence. From here, we're just going to quickly click the control rig here to take a look at it. So note that from here, we have prepared two samples here. So we have both Aoi and Manny on the side here. For the Aoi, we have both the body as well as the face rig. For Manny, we just have the body rig, which is more or less the same as the MetaHuman. So where we're going to see the differences are, we're going to see now that we go into the MetaHuman and we go to Global Control, and then when we toggle Show Body Controls, you'll see that not everything is actually properly hidden. So this includes the clavicles, the proxy controls for the fingers, for the curls, as well as a lot of the IK controls on the foot. As well as the pull vectors, you'll see that the gray draw lines here are also not properly hidden. So taking a look at this copy now, we haven't had any control rigs applied yet, so we're just going to add a control rig, which is our newly fixed control rig that we just processed. So with this on here, and if we take a look at the toggle for show body controls, everything is properly hidden, including the pull vector lines. So this is one of the major fixes. As long as you have the changes applied here, you should get the benefits of this as well. On top of this, we've also done a bunch of other proper channel filters, as well as limitations that are relevant to the controls. So we're going to go back to our original here, and we're just going to quickly toggle on the controls so that we can see them. So now taking a look at the control rig for the foot, you'll note that some controls aren't properly filtered with their proper channels as well as their axis. So for example, this control here is not meant to scale for the tip, but we can still scale it. And on top of that, if you look at the sequencer, there's also actual values for each of these channels. So what will happen is when we bake, these unnecessary and unused channels will also get baked in the keyframes, which is extra data that it can also slow down the baking process. Similarly, we take a look at the pull vectors. These pull vectors are meant to work in world position. So for example, if we scale a control here, nothing happens to the control or nothing happens to the rig, as well as if we rotate these guys, nothing happens to the rig as well. So these are meant to work in positional only. But for the pull vectors, we also have a lot of unnecessary channels. So on our version of the fixed control rig, you'll note that these things are all fairly clean. So when we look at the pull vector, we only have position. If we look at the tip, for example, we've also cleaned it up so that we only have rotation. So this is kind of the benefit of using this fixer, is that we're kind of putting filters and limitations on channels of things that shouldn't really be keyed because they're not actually linked up in the control rig. So now moving on to the face rig, we're going to click the MetaHuman Face tab, and we're going to use the default MetaHuman Face rig similarly to load the default MetaHuman Face rig into the slot here. We're just going to leave everything as default, and we're going to be clicking Run Fix Action. So note that similar to the body, we're going to leave these all checked, create new control rig with suffix checked, and apply customizations after fixing checked. And we'll also note that we're going to be adding a backplane here. So the default, we're going to be adding a triple backplane. You have the option of adding a single double, which will show shortly after, but we're going to leave it as triple for default. So similar to the body rig, it's going to duplicate it, apply the fixes, apply the customizations, and it's going to show you a completion message and take you to the control rig in your content browser. So once we press OK, the new location is here, and the face control rig slot has been populated with the new copy. Note that the fixed control rig has also disappeared because this control rig has been properly fixed. So to take a look at our changes, we're going to take a look at our fixed version control rig in our sequencer, and we're going to add the control rig that we just populated in. And we'll see right away that there's a notable difference in our new face control rig. So note that we have now a backplane so that we have better visibility on the controls. We also have a global control here at the top, and this allows you to move the control around. You can also scale it if you need to make it bigger or smaller, and you can even rotate it if you need to. Oh, not this one. Select global control again, and we can rotate it as needed. So pressing Control G will take you back to the default location, and we can compare this with the original one, which can often be hard to see, and you can't really select things that easily because when you do a marquee selection, you'll also catch the backboard here. On this version, if you do a marquee selection, you should only grab the controls that are relevant, so you don't actually catch the backplane or the backboard. So similarly to the body control rig, we also have a global control here that we can expand out, which we can also find two other additional options, which is show face control and show face backplane. So if we do the backplane, we can only toggle the backplane so it looks similar to the original one, and we can also toggle this one to hide all the controls for convenience of visibility. On top of this, we're going to take a look at the look at control. So if we're going to toggle this one on, so we're going to switch it on, and we're going to see that the colorization is also to the standard convention, where we have left side blue, center yellow, right side red. Similarly, when we run the convergence here, you can also see that this is way easier to see which one's the left eye and the right eye when it overlaps, as opposed to the original one, where if you have the convergence on, if I can select it correctly, you'll see that they're both yellow. So when you're animating these eyes around, it's kind of hard to distinguish which one is the left-hand side, which is the right-hand side, especially when you have convergence running here. G. control, so it's a bit hard to select. And you'll see that we can't distinguish which is left and right when there's an overlap. As opposed to here, we run the convergence, it's very easy to see which one's the left-hand, right-hand side. So to take a look at the different variants of the board, we've also prepared a couple of other samples here. You can see that this is the single board, where we have the backplane completely covering the entire area. We also have the double board here, which is right here, which splits it down the middle, similar to the triple, but we have two pieces here. In addition to being able to create the fixed control rig for the face with the 3 different types of the backboards, we also have the customization option of being able to adjust the position of the global control. So by default, we are using the top left position here. So if you have a preference of a different location you would like to put it, you can use one of our presets, which sets it to one of the other locations. So for example, if we set it to top, it will center it to a position between the 2 boards here. Likewise, we can use the top right, which is going to be above the secondary board here. And we also have bottom left, bottom, and bottom right. So if you don't want to use any of these locations, you can also optionally change it to custom and then punch in your own location. So for example, if we put in like -5, and then let's say we have a height of 98. Let's just run this and just see what that looks like. And you can see it's fairly quick for it to refresh and update, and you can kind of position it accordingly. So just like a random guess, I'm just going to move this down to -15 and 22. Let's try it once more. So you can keep punching in different values and shift it into whichever location works best for your scenario. Note that the center pivot is where the model is for the control rig shape library for the face boards. So you can see that that's the origin pivot. So when we're doing this offset here, this offset is corresponding to this pivot position here. So as long as you can find a position that works for you, just update it in the location here, and then just run customized actions. So going back to the body rig, we can take a look at the similar fix that we can apply to the Manny control rig. So in our collection here, we also have bookmarked the body rig for Manny. Normally, if you download the Manny pack from Fab or from the default content samples, it should be named CR Mannequin Body. So we're going to run the exact same options, which is default, which is going to be creating a new control rig with suffix, and we're just going to hit run fix actions. So once this is complete, we'll be taken to the location of the newly created control rig. From this location, we're going to take a look at the fixes. So we're going to go to our fixed copy here. We're going to import our fixed control rig here. So similarly to the MetaHuman for OE, we're going to take a look at the visibility settings for the body controls. You'll see that not everything is hidden on the original one. And in our fixed copy, we expand out here, we should see our changes that match OE's body rig. So with this tool, what we can do now is we can duplicate as many copies as we need to do different variants. So for example, from here, what we can do is let's just turn on this one. So we have this copy that we're going to be using. So let's say we want to make an offshoot one. So we can duplicate this one, and we want to say, let's say we want IK full. So we want, for example, the arms and the legs and the body, spine, and neck to all be an IK. So now that we duplicated this, I'm just going to quickly save it. And then we're going to load it into the body slot. And with these settings, we can just toggle on IK for the spine and head. And we can toggle on IK, which is already on for the leg, but we're also going to toggle it on for the arms. So with this one, we're just going to hit run customize action, and we're running it on the IK full since we've loaded it into the slot. So with that set up now, we can just swap out the control rig here. with the IK full variant. IK full. And now we have a different control rig with a different set of initial parameters. You can see that IK spine is set up, the IK neck is set up, the feet and the legs and the arms are all in IK mode. Likewise, if you wanted to change the colors for accessibility purposes, you can also click this one here. Let's say we want to change the left control colors to green, the right control colors to purple, and the center colors to, let's say, blue. And then if we apply the settings again, you'll see that new colors have taken effect. You can use this tool to quickly customize your rigs to any variant you want and any color you want that matches your preferred workflow. And that covers all the features that we have in this tool set for Control Rig Fixer. Thanks.